who can come and contribute their labor, those who can contribute their capital, those who can contribute money, those who can contribute in terms of ideas, and so on. Because people can sell ideas. Because ideas is something you have generated. So you can have a market for ideas. Just like you can have a market for goods and services. But once you bring in a labor market, then you are impeding. You are actually impeding the market for ideas. You are killing the market for ideas when you bring in a labor market. You are killing the market for creativity. You are killing innovation when you have a labor market. When you have a land market, you are killing livelihoods. Instead of creating livelihoods, you are actually killing livelihoods by having a land market. And therefore, those two, and you are actually killing the energies of people. You are bottling up people's energies. You are wasting people's energies. Because one who has given his labor to another can never generate ideas again. Because you have to generate ideas according to the person who owns your labor, according to the person who acquires your labor, who has bought your labor. And that doesn't make sense. Therefore, things that are called institutions, we need to rethink. An institution, by its very definition, cannot have freedom. Therefore, can we liberate humanity from institutions? Can we free humanity from an institution called a school, such that people get schooling in freedom? That's why we talk about someone who has decided this is what I love to do and has now gone on to acquire the necessary skills. Within the horizontal system, for example, let us look at one profession called medicine. Within the horizontal system, we have a medical school. And what goes on in a medical school? One has to learn the medical theory for a number of years with some little exposure to practical things. What if, like in the verticalist system, one at age 16 has now decided, I want to be a doctor. And in order for him to acquire the schooling, to acquire the skills that are necessary, he is actually attached to a hospital atmosphere. Right through. That's where he works. That's where he has invested his labor. For the 20 years when he is required to give service to humanity, for 20 years, his exposure is within that atmosphere. Knows all the aspects of medicine, knows all the aspects, how cleanliness would contribute to that, how diet would contribute to that, and everything. That is exactly what we say. You deinstitutionalize schooling. It can be deinstitutionalized. Just the same way can being a religious person be deinstitutionalized? It can. You don't need to belong to a church in order to be religious. You don't need to belong to a sect in order to be religious. It can be deinstitutionalized. The same thing, marriage can be deinstitutionalized. You do not have to, you shouldn't have a marriage institution, because an institution by its very nature denies freedom. It is a cocoon, and to break that cocoon is necessary in order for there to be freedom. And freedom, as we say, is the basis of everything that is good. Freedom is the basis of democracy. Freedom is the basis of schooling. Freedom is the basis of education. Freedom is the basis of livelihood. And therefore it is necessary that all the cocoons are broken open so that there is fresh air, there is freedom within those institutions. And that can only happen if people realize the pain of being institutionalized, the pain of belonging to something called a clan, the pain of belonging to something called a tribe, the pain of belonging to something called a race. Because the human spirit, the human mind cannot belong to anything. Because the human mind, we have said, it is totally unlimited. And therefore it cannot belong to a body. It cannot belong to a tribe. It cannot belong to a clan. It cannot belong to a nation. The human mind, the human spirit is universal. It is as big as, or even bigger than the universe. And therefore, to talk about belonging to an institution, whether that institution is a nation, whether that institution is a church, whether that institution is a marriage, whether that institution is a clan, is totally wrong. Even whether that institution is a school, it is totally wrong. We in the verticalist system believe, and we know, that one can be religious without belonging to a religious organization, without belonging to a sect. We know one can be in a marriage, happily so, without belonging to an institution called a marriage institution. We know that one can acquire skills and be schooled without belonging to an institution called a school. And that is very, very important. That's the basic, a major difference between the verticalist system and the horizontal system. Now, can psychological liberation be taught? Psychological liberation cannot be taught. Any attempt to teach psychological liberation would be in itself fettering psychological liberation. Psychological liberation can only be inspired. Because psychological liberation and education are the same thing. The two can only be inspired, they cannot be taught. And that's why we say psychological liberation can be inspired by the profound and even by the profane. It can be inspired by the evil that happens in the society, can inspire psychological liberation. It can also be inspired by the good that is taking place in society. And that is why we say there has to be a level where every individual is totally exposed to society, and at that level, that individual Because of the many things that are happening in society, that individual will be liberated. How long it takes, no one knows. How long it takes for one to be inspired, no one knows. How long it takes for someone to be touched by something. How long it takes for someone to be completely annoyed. How long it takes for someone to be totally disgruntled. Nobody knows. But it is the anger. It is the annoyance. It is the being disgruntled. It is the dissatisfaction. It is the beauty. It is the ugliness that will inspire someone to freedom, that will inspire someone to education. And therefore that exposure is necessary. If you lock yourself, if you go to the mountains, sit in the forest and hide there, even for 100 years, you may never be inspired, you may never be educated. But it is the exposure to society. It is the attention one pays to what is going on in society. It is the listening that would inspire, that would free the mind. And that is the essence of that basic unit that we talked about, because that basic unit, it exposes one to society. It enables one to listen. It enables one to pay attention. One is impelled by the circumstances, by the happenings, by the talks, by the dialogues. At the neighborhood assembly level, to acquire, to be educated, to be free. As we said, freedom cannot be gradual, it cannot be taught.